very warm welcome to another exciting episode of Energized Thinking. And as you know, that this platform is meant to create or to initiate conversation where we can spark curiosity. We invite guests with whom we can discuss different topics, and specifically, we talk about things which can lead you to think differently. And today, we are so honored to be joined by Mr. Dennis Pitocco. He is on a mission to reimagine what it really means to be human. He's leading with purpose, and he's also a main driving force behind 360 Nation. It is an extraordinary platform and ecosystem built entirely for good. It is also a platform that actually create like three platforms together. It's binding three platforms together. That is, the one is the award-winning Biz Catalyst, which is a publishing division. 360 Nation Studio. This is multimedia, and then Good Works 360, a social enterprise devoted to humanitarian impact. Dennis is doing such great work, and his team is, or with his team, is building a community and brings all the minds together from across the globe and creating a community that believes that humanity is the best ever solution. So let's welcome Dennis. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Valerie, you've done such a great job at defining what I do. Thank you for that.
Thank you so much. So basically I gave a bit of introduction, but just tell us a bit about your journey. That how did you started your journey, and why you're so passionate about reimagining humanity?
Thanks so much for that question. My wife, Allie, and I were blessed by enough success early in our respective careers that it allowed us to retire effectively much earlier than most people. We were both in, I'll call it the banking industry, literally around the world. I was over in Europe. She's British. She was working in Europe. So we got off the hamster wheel at a relatively young age after I sold my business in England. But it gave us an opportunity to do what so many people just don't have the opportunity to do, and that's make choices as to what we wanted to do with our time, our talent, and our treasure. And the best analogy I can use, it's like the dog that's been chasing the car for years, and the dog finally catches the car. Then you say, "Well, now what? What do you do with the car?" Well, we caught that car, and after a series of long walks, I'm talking about over 3 or 4 months, because we like to get out among nature, away from all the noise and think. So we would do that every morning, and we just added this notion of what do we want to do with our time, our talent, and treasure. And after all those walks, we decided on 3 things, and we pretty much held true to them. First one was we wanted to do what I call intentional travel. And what I mean by intentional travel, we were both in the business where, by definition of our jobs, we were always traveling somewhere before we even knew each other. But as you ladies probably know, business people end up in airports, conference rooms, and taxis, but you don't necessarily see where you're visiting. And I'd been all over Eastern Europe, but I couldn't tell you anything about the towns. So we said, we want to travel intentionally, which means we're going to map out the world, and we're going to leave America for last. Because what we wanted to do was intentionally understand cultures beyond America to give us a better perspective on life. And boy, was that a great decision. We figure we'll come back to America when we're too old and crotchety to get on an airplane, and then we'll rent an RV across America. Anyhow, so that was number one. Number two, we both, again, before we met and after we met, we both had this driving desire to want to give back. And this is after witnessing a lot of international crises over the years in different countries. And by giving back, I don't mean just writing checks. We wanted to be in a position to roll up our sleeves and get in the mud. So we approached a lot of different organizations, nonprofits, and the American Red Cross. In fact, we went through the International Red Cross training, and our only requisite was we do it together. We don't care where you send us. Just pick us up, put us down. But we want to be in the mud. We don't want to be in the back room doing paperwork. And then, so we got heavily involved. I volunteered, and as did my wife Allie, with Meals on Wheels of Tampa. We're talking about delivering meals to people that are homebound. It's 15 years later. We're still doing that, but along the way, we got more involved. Allie involved in the office. I got invited to join the board. I ultimately chaired the board. Then I went on to chair boards around the country. But we never lost sight of the mission of getting out there every Tuesday and delivering meals to people that have become part of our family. And then the third thing we decided, we knew we had to keep our minds active. A lot of people say when you're retired, you either need to play Sudoku or do crossword puzzles. We didn't think we were old enough for that. So that's where we launched our online media and publishing platform that you mentioned. And we wanted to stretch our mind to the limits by doing it from scratch. We didn't have any background in what we're doing today. We didn't build websites. We didn't do that. But we said, we're going to learn from our mistakes and we're going to keep it in-house. And by keeping it in-house, it allows us to not only react quickly to what's going on in the world, but it allows us to preserve our ethos, which is, doing things for good. So you combine all those things together after 15 years, and that's where 360 Nation came from. And you've already talked about our ethos as well. But what's interesting is there's never been a business plan. Our evolution and the ideas have come from listening, participating, and engaging with people. And without those boundaries of a plan, we kind of embraced that quote I've heard many times. It was from a lady named Margaret Shepherd. She said, sometimes your only available transportation is a leap of faith. And that's what we had. We had a leap of faith that if we built this thing, people would come. And they did.
Your work is so impressive, like the way you are. I love the idea of intentional traveling. I really would love to do that. I think me, Courtney, and Valerie would team up and go and intentionally tour around the world along with you. So, also,
What's
so that's
interesting
really good. Yeah.
What's interesting about that, Brain, is this wasn't necessarily envisioned, but by virtue of that traveling now, we've got almost 1,300 writers around the world. So literally almost everywhere we go, we have someone we can meet. And I think you ladies know as well as I do, virtual is nice, but you just can't beat the magic of handshakes and hugs. Once you sit down and have that coffee, that lunch, that beer, that dinner with somebody, it changes the relationship. So by default, because we were building this publishing thing, it opened the door to help our intentional travel have more meaning. And we have a list of everybody we've met around the world. We're up to just under 150 people now.
That's that's incredible, Dennis. I love that. And I love how you had said like the three T's. Like you said time, travel, and treasure. And I love that. And treasure in itself is kind of like this discovery. You're saying you were traveling, another T, traveling around and discovering the treasure of like what this world has to offer, and also you were saying stretching the limits of your mind, which is a treasure in itself, and exploring in itself both around the world and what can you do with your minds. You and Allie doing that, I think, and then inspiring other people is just amazing. I have, well, two questions for you. My first question is what what is so this is more of a fun question. What was your favorite place that you visited, as well as how would you describe like this stretching your mind, traveling, as how, or I guess what have you found is more alike than different around the world? Like, what have you learned along the way, along this journey with all the contacts and the coffees and sitting down? And so it was a long-winded question, but just so much that I have to ask you about all of this and your amazing journey.
Thanks. No, great question. The name of the actual village escapes me, but let me go back to, this is probably, well, almost 15 years ago. We were traveling through the Middle East, first time in the Middle East, and this was still when the war was still in the front page headlines. And, it's unfortunate, but as Americans, we got this blanket coverage of the war that gave us the impression that the Middle East was a very dangerous place, and you got to be careful. And not that everybody's a terrorist, but there was kind of an impression given. So people were being warned, well, we went the opposite direction. We went there. And I can't remember the village in the Middle East, but we got into that village, and we had arranged to see. We normally just walk on our own and discover things. We don't like to do organized tours because we want to get into the heart of places. We don't want to see the tourist traps. In this case, there was a company called Tours by Locals, and they actually match you with somebody that lives there that's willing to show you on a personal basis. Well, we were matched with the school teacher, and he took us through the temples. He took us through a bunch of different places. We got to know him quite well. And after experiencing that day with him and learning about his family and his children, what's important to them, it was almost like he was in this bubble because we're right in the heart of the Middle East. He's not a terrorist. We don't feel unsafe. How far that went? Well, we came back and we stayed in touch, and he ultimately was offered an opportunity to do a teacher swap with a school in Ohio. So we stepped up and we offered to come Tampa first. We'll kind of get you ready for it, because he had never been to America. And he was cute because I remember him writing to us and saying, I'm embarrassed to ask this question, but is it okay to wear blue jeans when I come to America? But, those are the simple things. But the important message behind that was it poked a hole in that thought that everybody's the same in the Middle East. There was this wonderful community of people. You just have to open your minds and open your hearts to them. Just amazing. But that really defined the value of traveling, because whenever we saw the headlines from that point forward, whether it be on TV, we knew they weren't totally true. We knew there were pockets of good people out there.
It's incredible.
So, Dennis, I'm going to take this conversation in a different direction. But, I think what's so interesting is that we have all had the great opportunity to be able to write for you, and how you allow critical thinking, you allow other stories to be able to be witnessed, to be read, and it opens up our minds to the different perspectives that we have out there in this world. And I just love how you speak a lot about rediscovering humanity. And so my question for you is just, what are some values or behaviors you believe that leaders today need to perhaps unlearn to truly serve with purpose?
You think about that one. Such an important question. I want to get this one right for the benefit of anybody that watches this. I think, to truly serve with purpose. This is from my experience, both of a prior corporate guy and then a non-corporate person. They've got to find a way to unlearn the demand for quick wins and instantaneous metrics, and they got to get rid of this illusion that they are the solitary authority in favor of collaborating, in favor of being more vulnerable. I've talked to a number of corporate guys since the pandemic. And what's interesting about that conversation is there's a commonality to their response to my question. My question has always been, what's the difference in your corner office from before the pandemic to after? Well, the challenge they're having to a person is they have to learn some of those things that we all might call soft skills. They weren't ever required to be compassionate or empathetic. It was HR's job. In other words, they never had to come out of the corporate office. And now what? They had to come out because the corporate office is no longer there. The HR people are working from home, and yet they've got people in the trenches. So soft skills is a tough thing, but it's not something that you learn in business school. So they were all challenged with that. So that was part of it. They need to move beyond defining their self-worth by their net worth, which is a tough one. And I think everybody, not just those leaders, they need to have the benefit of what I was fortunate to do many years ago, and that's adopt a personal code of values. Something that you say, as long as it doesn't cross any of these boundaries, it's okay. Now, I did that many years ago. Don't ask me where the idea came from. I was probably working for somebody that did it. And I said, boy, that's a great idea. I'm going to go do that. So I always believed that a man or a woman, you got to have your code. What's your code? What can you bounce things off of? Like, for example, on our website, you were talking about the publishing. Well, we've said to our writers, look, I want you to have the freedom to write, take off the shackles, but it's got to be respectful and it can't be mean spirited. If it passes those two tests, pretty much you can write anything you want. Uh, Anyhow, so that's one of the things for the website. Now, when you go back to those principles, the ones that I adopted, frankly, I think are pretty generic, and I'd love to see more leaders adopt it. Authenticity. I don't think we see enough of that these days. People use that word, but I'm not sure they practice that word. Integrity, respect, accountability, empathy, and community. Those are my six. Those have been my six for a long time. And I cannot tell you, particularly in the banking world, how many times they were tested, particularly integrity, where you have choices to do the wrong thing because nobody's watching. And I always balanced against those. I'm not going to cross those lines. I may have sounded like a Boy Scout to a lot of people, but it worked for me. And I was rewarded for being the one guy that wouldn't cross that line. So, outstanding question. I just hope more leaders wake up to that.
Dennis, thank you so much for just speaking about that, because I do think that when you have strong values, it provides really clear direction.
Yes.
No, and I love how you mentioned that, how leaders today, I mean, being empathetic, focusing on integrity as you move forward. And I think that's the thing, is that the people that you meet along the way, there could be different collaborations that come into, your pathway, but does it align with what you're doing, your mission, your values, your ultimate, vision in general? And so I just love how you speak about that. Thank you, Dennis.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Seriously, I can't agree more that like integrity and authenticity are the, I would say, and values. They are the like. It's really important to have this, but it is, as you said, that many times you're tested to do that, because if in society or in this world, most of the time that fake persona or some fake values are more rewarded than the real authenticity and integrity. Because when you want to be more to follow your values, you need to have that courage. It's not all the time easy to follow what you have it in your as your value. So I agree with it.
Well, thank you for that. I think the authenticity, it's probably one of my hot buttons because I see so much lack of it. It's like the people that they sound good, they look good, they're saying the right things, but at 5 o'clock they become a different person. Because the lights are out now. And there are so many relationships, we're all on a big platform called LinkedIn where I get frustrated, and I shouldn't, because I'm a little bit of an altar boy here. But when I see transactional relationships versus real relationships, that's a hot button for me. So anyhow.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, and it's sometimes frustrated for the people who are genuine, that that's like everyone is there for the transactional relationship, and seriously, for like people, I mean, I have witnessed this. Like, I want to actually authentically, or it's like genuinely want to help people, but then people don't even understand that how can you just not have any transactional meaning or value for this. So, but these people are very rare, I would say. There are very, very few people who genuinely wants or care for others. So it's hard to find those people.
Well, but when you do, and I think you ladies know this, you gravitate towards them. You want more of that because you don't see that very often. And that's how in our case, that's how we built a community over many years. We gravitate towards the people that are being real. Doesn't mean they have to be popular. They're just authentic. And we test that constantly in some of our online forums. And it's amazing how that community has grown. And it kind of sorts itself out. Because the people that are not authentic, after a while, they realize, well, this ain't my cup of tea, so to speak. But the people that are, they bring their friends.
That's amazing. Dennis, I can't help but keep thinking about the fact that you have 360 Nation as the title. And I think that That really just is such a perfect visual for what we're talking about, that authenticity, that circle. Like I'm just visualizing a circle, 360 degrees of like how this authenticity of through the 24-hour period of how can we bring our true selves, how can we be genuine. And I love it on so many different levels, because that's what, we're that's all about. What I feel like, how do we show up as humans in 360 degrees? How can
Thank
we
you.
show both our inside and outside? And I think that's beautiful what you're doing, and I
Thank you.
love that title so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. We're not lacking for negative news out there. So we think our opportunity in this journey we've been on for 15 years now, it's been a tough climb. There are so many people that want to throw stones at things like this because, the comments I hear a lot, you're never going to change the world. I said, you're right. I individually am not going to change the world, but together we can. So Valerie, Courtney, and Ambreen are talking, and I say one thing that they take away and share with somebody else. That's one ripple of change positively. But if you take the attitude, it's never going to change, everybody's going to stand back. It's like the same people walking the street of New York and they see somebody fall on their face and they're hurt, but they don't want to get involved. Well, we're the people that step forward and get involved. We'll worry about the details later. And that's the same path
So
in humanity. But once you get people following the journey, the light bulb goes off. And they realize, this isn't just us, this is us together as a community.
absolutely. Dennis, I just have one other question that I really have on my mind is I kind of remember, Dennis, you mentioning a long time ago about there was a trail in Spain or a trail in Spain. And I just want to ask you about that because it makes me think of like this journey we take together with either like on a trail, hiking up a mountain and enjoying the journey. And I was curious what your thoughts were. What were your takeaways when you did this trail in Spain? Because I have heard so many kind of aha moments for people who have done that.
Oh, wow. Yes, that we're about one year off that journey. We took the time, and this was a little bit of testing our own humanity as well as our ethos. We wanted to do what everybody talked about, and we published a lot of articles, and people are always talking about disconnecting. And for a day, for 24 hours, I'm not going to look at my phone. And for the weekend, well, we said, my wife and I talked about it. I said, we keep publishing articles about it. We keep hearing about it. What better way to send that message is for us who are on 24/7 all the time to be, I don't want to say brave enough, but bold enough to say, okay, we're checking out for 6 weeks. Sorry. And life will go on. And people said, you can't do that. I said, yes, we can. And watch us because we want to enjoy the experience, first of all, a little selfishly of checking out, but we want to demonstrate that it's okay to do that. And the fear of missing out can easily turn into the joy of missing out.
Mhm.
Anyhow, so we decided we were going to walk the Camino de Santiago starting in France and going across Spain. It's a 510-mile walk. We talked about it for years, actually, and we almost did it, but then came the pandemic and all the travel stuff. So we did it about a year, almost a year and a half ago. Took us 6 weeks, and as my wife counted them, it was about 2.1 million steps on her little step counter.
Amazing.
Here's what happened, though, Valerie, and it's just life-changing. And in fact, it was so life-changing, we did something I said I would never do. We wrote a book about it, and I'll come back to the book in just a minute. What we discovered is when you were walking for days upon days, and when I say walk it, we weren't in a group, it was just the two of us. Now, we would see people along the way, of course, but we were averaging about 15 miles a day through all kinds of terrain, uphill, downhill. It was an endurance test when it came to physical, but frankly, after about the first 2 weeks, I think your legs finally get the message. You're going to walk every day. Okay, I get it. So I'm not going to fight you anymore. But what kicks in is not the mental fatigue, but the idea of saying, oh my God, tomorrow morning I got to get up and do this again. And whether there's blisters and whether there's rain or whether there's this, I've still got to keep going because we've made a commitment to ourselves to get to the finish line, if you will. The greatest life-changing experience we had of this whole thing, and this is talked about in the book, and that was something we discovered, and that was when you're walking for days and days and days, and you're up in the vineyards and you're back to pure nature at its best with nothing around you except maybe some cows, some birds, maybe a stray dog, and just fields and fields of everything from poppies to wheat to whatever's growing up there, we discovered what we ultimately called in the book our symphony of silence. And what that meant is suppose you took away all the noise, all the social media, all the phones, all the music, all the news, everything, just all you had was yourself and your partner. In our case, we did that. And we were walking for well, first 2 weeks of the walk, you're getting rid of all the post-it notes that are in your brain because you're still thinking about and then finally they disappear. And then you get to that silent point, and my wife and I started going much deeper. We've been together 20 years and we work together. So we're always kind of with each other, but you think you're talking, but are you not really going deep because you're skipping across? We went deep on pretty much anything we could possibly come up with and went down to relationships, family, what we do for a living. Do we want to continue doing this? If we do we want to change it? We were so far off the hamster wheel, we could ask ourselves these questions. And it was so cathartic to be able to say, by the time we got to the end of that, we knew each other better. We had taken each other a step closer, but we had figured out a pivot. And I bring this up now because I have this tablet next to me, which I've been putting notes in for ever since the Camino, because we keep talking about, we're going to take everything we learned beyond the book that we wrote, and we're going to pivot 360 Nation. We're going to be announcing that, as a matter of fact, on January 1st. We have an announcement ready to go. We're going to completely reimagine what we're doing, not because we don't like it, not because we're not committed, but the world's changing around us. And we think we can do more, we can do better, we can go deeper, we can get the message out because we got this marvelous community, but we never want to become an echo chamber. So I think personally, it's my job to walk my talk by getting into the bowels of corporate America, number one, which means go where they are. Don't wait for them to come to us. And I can go on and on about that, but that all came from the Camino. And I touched upon the book. And let me just say, we wrote this book for two reasons. Number one, selfishly, it was such a life-changing experience. We didn't want to forget it. And we wanted to be able to go back to it, which we do occasionally, because you get back on the hamster wheel and suddenly, oh, that was wonderful, but here we are again. And second of all, we had talked to a number of people that they were thinking about walking the Camino. They had heard about it, they had researched it, but they would love to read about it through the eyes of people that actually did it. And I don't mean as a travel log, but here's our story. We talked about everybody we met. We talked about the fact that 3 people died during our walk. I mean, the emotional upheaval. We talked about all these experiences that changed us personally. So as you can tell, I could probably go on forever about it, but it was such a marvelous experience. And the ripple effect, as I said, with this pivot book I've got here, it's still coming. We're now rethinking over the holidays what we're going to look like when we grow up.
It's amazing.
Idea of like going through. I know this. I've just read your article about it. Just that how you went there and how was the walk. But listening again, it's when I get imagining just going on foot, like, and seeing all these things. I've just noticed, because here, especially in our country here, we don't walk a lot. So even if we have to go, we usually use our car. So
Yes.
Sometimes when we go by walk, we notice a lot of things around us. Like so many shops that maybe like I might not have even noticed when I'm going by car, we do notice. So I'm just imagining, like, if you have to go on foot, you see a lot of things, and there is a lot of time to even think. And especially when you are walking, mind works even better. So I think that's another benefit of it. Yeah.
And you're away from all the noise, and you're probably more focused. We still walk. We walk probably around 5 a.m. every single day. The only people we see are the neighborhood dogs that are being walked. Which is fine. We don't mind them. But beyond that, we continue this day-to-day discussion of where we are, what's important. And that's become our continued symphony of silence.
I love that. I love that. The symphony of silence. That's so beautiful.
Thanks.
Dennis, I love this conversation because it really does. I think it allows others to understand the value of stepping away sometimes from that routine, that schedule day in and day out, regardless of what industry they're in, but being able to have such a clarity of thought. Like you said, I mean, just going down this path, my gosh, I can't even imagine walking that much, quite honestly. But I think that has to be such a beautiful thing of, in comparison to our daily lives, we're all connected, and it almost does not allow, unless you deliberately take time out of your day to remove yourself, but to think about, like you said, I mean, pivoting your business and being able to think about like the big picture as to what goals you would like to accomplish in the future. But unless you kind of remove yourself from that daily grind, you may not be able to see the big picture. And so my next question is just in relation to you stay so grounded, but yet I'm just curious about like what has deeply influenced your path. Like it could be a person, it could literally be a place, like maybe it was exactly what we spoke about, but anything in particular?
Yeah, my first thought is during my business career, I was tucked under what I'll call some of the best managers uh, I can imagine. When I say best, though, they were either the worst of the best or the best of the best. I learned from both of them. Some of them were absolute disasters that I learned what the meaning of integrity was. And I tested my values back then. Some of them were just brilliant people. The guy that comes to mind immediately is a guy named Phil. I worked for him in a large banking enterprise in Philadelphia. Phil was a lawyer. He was a deputy mayor. He was a writer. He was like that cosmopolitan man. He had done everything once. And he was such a brilliant person. Forget the issue. I just sat there in awe, like taking notes in my mind, saying, I want to be him when I grow up. And he just shared these little drops of wisdom. And what was nice about it is, unlike a lot of things you read these days, these weren't theories or Harvard Business Review studies. This was a real person who had experienced these things. We talked about storytelling earlier, authentic storytelling. People that have actually done that, whatever it was that you can learn from. And so Phil just taught me so much. And again, when I say the word blessed, I was in my like mid-20s, so I was lucky. Early enough in my career that I could take what I was learning and do something with it versus saying, boy, I wish I would have met Phil 20 years ago. He just changed my life in so many ways. And I told him that over the years.
Amazing.
Well, and I think what's so interesting is even as I reflect back, my first corporate manager, you're right. I mean, there's leaders that come across our paths. And even to this day, it's literally a decade later, we still stay in touch because he really did. He had such a profound positive impact on my life of being, I was so young, I was so naive into the industry of like medical sales, but somebody who takes the time to develop you, to allow you to grow and to understand the industry, not just the products that you're selling on a daily basis. I could certainly relate. So thank you for sharing that, Dennis.
Well, let me just add that one other thing Phil gave me that really took to heart, because up until then I was this hard charging, coming up in the trenches guy that worked 80 hours a week. He taught me not work life balance, but work life harmony.
Mm.
Which means this: you're never going to get it 50-50. You can try, but you're always going to be failing. So why not just say some days it might be 80-20, some days it might be the other way around. But as long as it's blending together in your awareness, and the second most important thing he taught me among just business uh, values was a great sense of humor. He said, never be reluctant to laugh. Haven't we all forgotten how to play and laugh? And we were in really intense situations, and he would say something that everybody in the board meeting would look around like, is it okay to laugh? And we just,
Oh, bless.
I just love it. Absolutely love this. I love the idea of like the harmony, this the work life and its harmony, because I think there is the balance is like, it's never be like the 50-50%, as you say, that it should be like blend in so well that, you have time for your life and you have time for the for your work, but it has to go together, but like go hand in hand. So I know, like, I want to ask you about this. Like, I know you mentioned that you are also reimagining your entire like 360 nation and everything. And like now it's time to maybe like move on, or maybe like go one step further. So what do you think? What is your future vision of humanity?
Well, I don't know. It dawned on me many, many years ago, and this really kind of gets to the gritty in terms of why we started this movement altogether. It dawned on me long ago, and my wife, as we're kind of observing and listening and engaging and watching people and not being judgmental, but just kind of taking it all in.
Mm-hmm.
The world was changing so fast by virtue of technology, work-life balance, as we talked about it, social media, politics, global events, the daily headlines every single day. You got to look hard to find some good news these days. And the pace of modern life was just ramping right up. So we were afraid that a lot of people, including us, were losing sight of what we talked about earlier, our authentic selves. You take all these, and this kind of leads to where we're heading. It kind of, you look at I'm trying to think of an analogy here. Picture your grandmother. Everybody has a grandmother somewhere, and she's got this attic, and she has this wooden rocking chair that's been handed down over the ages, over the generations. It's sitting up there. It's a little bit dusty. It's got decades of accumulated varnish and paint or whatever they do to those things. And all this protective coating has really taken away the natural beauty of that chair. There's a rich grain underneath that thing. There's, warm textures that people would marvel at that they don't make anymore. Now, step back for a minute and saying that's what we think has happened to humanity. That's why we use the word rediscover humanity. It's still there.
Mm-hmm.
We are all that chair. What's layered over us now is cynicism, bad news, facades. But if you peel back all those layers, guess what you're going to find? You're going to find humanity. So that's what we're driving people back to, is the humanity that we all still have. And that doesn't matter when it comes to culture. It translates around the world. So back to your question, we haven't figured it out yet. What's most exciting about this pivot is, and you'll see this in the article that I've written to kind of get ready, was framing what we're up to. We're not defining what we're going to look like because honestly, we don't know. I honestly don't know. And I don't want to think about it until we get into what I'll call our next symphony of silence. Now I'm going to tip my hand a little bit. In this article, it's saying to the world, we're going to disappear for a while. Not going to be walking a Camino, but I think we said from March 1st until further notice, we're going to go dark. I don't mean the website will still be there, but we're going to back off all of our events. We're not going to have any more events. Not because we don't like the events, but we have to kind of roll up the carpet completely if we want to then have the ability to say, all right, nothing's in the way now. We're back on the Camino again, figuratively. And then I'm going to go into this pivot book. Now, in the pivot book is just a bunch of random thoughts I've had for the last 3 or 4 months about, I wonder if we should do that. I wonder if we should do this. But I'm not opening the book to rediscover that whole thing later. I just know one thing I will do. I need to get out in front of some of those corporate cultures. Mm-hmm. And I've already started talking. I've said my pitch is this. Everybody wants to be a public speaker. I am not a public speaker, but I'm happy to. Here's my pitch. And I'm trying to stay true to our values when I do this pitch, which means we don't do things for money. So I've said to at least one corporation that I talked to about a month ago, I said, look, here's my deal. I'm going to come into your auditorium or your convention or whatever you're putting together there, and I want to stand in front of your group, and they're going to be expecting some guy that's going to be brought in by HR, and he's going to do a PowerPoint presentation, and he's going to have you take notes, and by Monday, everybody's going to forget what he said. I said, I want to come in, but I need your permission. And I was testing him. I said, because in order for me to come in, and I'll tell you what my message is in just a minute, they need to know this is coming from the top of the house. This is an HR saying, here's a new program. We're going to bring Dennis in. Dennis is going to talk about bringing humanity back into the workplace. And I'm going to give them a talk that is going to make them walk away saying, wow, I didn't expect that. But it's going to be endorsed from the top. Otherwise, Monday, they're going to forget it, or the HR program will put it back in the box. And I said, but here's the deal. I will go anywhere in the world All you need to do is pick me up and put me there. If there's an honorarium or a fee, I don't want it, but I'm going to give you the name of one of the best nonprofits I know, and I want you to donate it to them because we'll do it for good, but we want the message to get in. And I think if you can get enough brave CEOs that they've had it with all this stuff and they really do want to bring humanity in. And I think these days, particularly since the pandemic, there is a leaning forward on that notion. And you can read articles. We can all do that every day. But how about we go do it? And I will walk them through it and I'll tell them. So I'm excited about the opportunity, not just to do it, but to see what happens. And to me, that's the next step in me getting out in front and saying, I'm walking my talk, but I've got to get more out in front. I've got to be more meaningful. And I've got to get off virtual and into their faces, as they say.
I love that.
Amazing. Yeah. Sorry, we are so excited when you actually share all these things. It's like we get to hear these kind of things very rarely. Like people, as you said, that yeah, they're so excited. They want to talk. They charge like thousands of like maybe like $100,000 for the talk, and then what happens? Maybe like after a few days, everybody like forgets what's happening and something like this. But what you're doing is really amazing. I mean, I'm so like honored to hear your thoughts, and I'm sure that I would support you in any way if I can. So,
Well, thank you. That what I shared with you folks, that is the only thing I'm sure of. The rest of that tablet is just ideas that are kind of on a whiteboard, and then we're excited about the unknown. If that makes sense to you. We're type A personalities. We're always planning everything, all of our events. We said, no, we're not going to plan anything here. We're just going to go dark. And my article actually says, and this was scary for me to write, we are going to come back, but we don't know when. And we don't know what we're going to look like. I said to my wife, that was scary to type those keystrokes because everything's always been predictable.
Yeah.
I think you just have to break the chain a little bit in order to get there. And if it weren't for the Camino, I probably wouldn't have been brave enough to do that because I know the value of that symphony now.
Dennis, I love that. And I love how you mentioned symphony, and it makes me think about a symphony. And what you're describing is exactly what makes good music and makes beautiful music is the rest, the pause. We can't have all the instruments playing all at once. We need to have rest. We need to have pauses. And even in music theory, like you have dissonance. You have different things, different chords in a sense in music theory, let's say, but something that doesn't sound good. That then has to be resolved to a different chord, to like a more happy sounding chord, to a more acceptable sounding chord. But you need that dissonance to make that music and to make that beautiful symphony. And there's so much power and so much beauty in that. And I just love all those parallels that you're making with it. And I'm just so excited to see what's next and to see what comes after that pause.
It's funny to use the word music because we talk about that a lot because like humanity, music cuts across all cultures.
Yes.
You don't need a translator for music. If you think about it. So.
You don't. Nope.
Yeah, music actually touches heart and soul actually without any words. I actually, yeah, this is so powerful. That's true.
I love it.
And it's actually, you know what? That's what I was just thinking because I like music and something, but now what I'm more interested in, like music actually generates some frequencies and vibrations, and that actually talks to the soul. So I'm more into more like physics and neurosciences perspective, but that is how it is, that it creates the mental state which elevates your soul. So yes, I love that.
I just had a feeling you were going to now tell me that Zorabe is a singer as well.
Yeah, actually, Zareb is more. He likes to, but it's more into this. I don't know, like we have this. Like he recites Quran. Like I know, like as if you have the Bible, so he likes to recite Quran, and his voice is really, really inspiring. Like whoever listens to when he recites Quran, they said, "Wow, he's so melodious." So yeah, you get
there
this
you
right.
go.
Yeah.
Dennis, you mentioned something about like humor and laughter, and I can't help but ask you, is there something that you can share with us? Share with us something like a joke or some kind of laughter. I need something because you mentioned that power, and I agree.
Yes, that would be fun.
Don't mean to put you on the spot there.
No,
Yeah.
no, that's a tough one because you have to. Most of my humor, and when I say humor, I like the good belly laugh, the thing that really gets you down and
Yeah,
you
yeah, yeah.
feel like it's cleansing your soul. That is so spontaneous. So I'm not embarrassed. I don't normally tell jokes, but when I see good humor, boy, I just take it in and I want more of that. I have
I
nothing
love that.
to mind because I feel like I'd be a little contrived telling you a joke. Because I prefer the spontaneity of just that deep belly laugh where something just strikes you.
The authenticity of laughter, like
Exactly.
what you're saying. Yeah,
That's what I gravitate towards. And
I
frankly,
love that.
don't see it very often. But it's like we said earlier, when you see an authentic person, you want to gravitate towards it. When you see that hilarious moment, which are hard to come by these days, boy, you just want to get more of that, don't you? Because it's just, I got to believe, and I'm not
Really
an expert.
is.
It's got to be, Ambreen, you're an expert on, psychology. It's got to be healthy for the soul, the brain, the system of that one.
Absolutely.
But when's the last time any of us have had that real deep belly laugh?
That's very
All
true.
right.
It's
Yeah.
yeah, it makes us think that when we had that moment, and I think that when the laughter comes, it as you said, it cleanses our soul. So it is very much important. But how many times we have had that moment? That's a question. Yes, I love
Mm-hmm.
that.
That's great. Inner child, bringing out that inner child a bit.
Yes, yes, great example.
Dennis, I just wanted to thank you for coming on to this conversation, obviously, that we're having here. I mean, the one thing I can remember the very first time that I met you, you are so real. You are so genuine in your mission. I'm serious. And that's what you're right. I mean, that's what literally allows people to gravitate to that because it's more rare today that you come across people who do have those genuine values that they speak about, that they actually talk the talk, walk the walk. And, you're on to such incredible things. I'm so excited to hear about what this pivot's going to be. And you kind of inspired me. You inspired me to, sometimes you need to kind of like remove yourself from the daily grind, but
Yes.
to realize and just kind of like let things go. Like you said, you may have like a little bit of a direction as far as like going into that corporate direction, but at the same time you're just allowing things to flow. And I think that's when sometimes, I'll be honest with you, I get anxious about the future. I'll be like, okay, if it's not planned, it's
Yeah,
You're the type A that we are too, Courtney, and
yeah,
I know that. And it's a
absolutely.
struggle to back off, but boy, isn't it refreshing when you can take that step outside that regimented plan. Scary, and let me tell you, it's scary what we're about to do here. But I look forward to the scariness and the surprise and wherever we end up. I guess I've got the confidence that we're going to end up where we're supposed to be.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
absolutely, absolutely. And I can relate so much to the type A. Like you can
I mean,
imagine that how me and Courtney actually discuss a lot about this, that how much we are into the planning. Like just imagine that I plan my 20 years of my life. So, and even like I do this also all the time. So it's just not that I don't want the spontaneity, but I just it's like my type A personality. So yes, I can so much relate.
mhm.
Going like not having that plan is makes me like so anxious that what what happened? How am I lose control or something like this? So yes, that's amazing.
all of that to say that Dennis is our inspiration for
Yes.
embracing
Yeah.
continuity.
Yes.
Hmm.
You inspire us to create or to think differently now. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I've used the word blessed several times, and I truly mean blessed and authenticity. And there's a quote that I came across years ago it's by a guy named Rumi, if you haven't heard of Rumi. And it's the privilege of a lifetime is becoming who you truly are. And I am so blessed to have become that. And I wasn't always that. I became that after a lot of ups and downs in life and in
Yeah.
business. And once you discover who you truly are and you have the blessings to be able to spread your wings, it's just a remarkable ride. Where never people say, aren't you tired? Don't you want to stop? No, never. It's 24/7, but we're not doing it because we want a career. We're doing it because we really believe in it. And how lucky are we to be able to say that, you know?
That's
But it's
amazing.
because we've had the privilege of becoming who we are, and we didn't know who we were in the beginning.
I love that. I love that.
Okay. So maybe like I will just ask you to maybe what one piece of advice would you like to give to our audience to bring back humanity?
No, thank you. You know, I've said this to many people, and I'll say it here. It's time for all of us to stop hitting that snooze button on our lives and what really matters. We know what matters to us. We know what our values are. We know where people need help. So, you know, stop putting off that lunch with your favorite friend. Stop waiting until tomorrow to tell that person you care about just how much you care about them. Stop calling people and being transactional. Call them because you just really want to see how they're doing. You don't really want anything. You're just calling to listen, particularly if they're a senior citizen, they're stuck at home, they don't get much interaction. We see a lot of that with the Meals on Wheels people. Up with these meals for the fast 15 years. It's not, well, the food's important. Boy, that is not why in their mind, we are food for their soul. We are the only people they're seeing, maybe all day, maybe all week. So they put the food aside. They want to sit down and chat. So we sit down and chat. But so do those kind of things, you know. Well, we all know the life we're guaranteed is in the present moment here. So let's start living more of our minutes on purpose. You know, we have a choice every day we wake up. Do I make the world a better place somehow, or don't I bother? Let somebody else do it. You know, just make that choice. Life's not about being a perfect human. It's about being perfectly human.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much. I love that conversation. I really, I'm so inspired by all those what you said. So thank you so much.
Yeah. Hey, my pleasure. It's nice to have these kind of conversations because, frankly, I don't know, it kind of validates from third parties that maybe we are on the right track here because we don't have a business plan. We don't have it all figured out. It's just happening because of these kind of discussions. And I will tell you, when I have these, I walk away with a whole page of notes because you ladies have given me some things to think about in that pivot book. And this is where we get our ideas. I used to say I just tip my head over and it all comes out. It doesn't anymore. I need engagement to figure it out. So thank you for that.
Thank you. That's lovely.
Oh, welcome. Thank you.
Dennis, thank you so much for this conversation. We're so grateful to have you on. I was so excited to have you on. We all were.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so much, Dennis.
Hey, you're welcome. You have a wonderful week.